guys, this is Cinestra and River. These are our top 10 cards from M21 and Jumpstart that we think we'll see play in cEDH.
We're gonna start with a couple of honorable mentions. Tiny Bones, See the Truth, and Mangara. All of those cards are already seeing experimentation in cEDH, but we don't think they're gonna stand the test of time.
Okay, so for our number 10 pick, we have Double Vision.
Double Rainbow, oh my god.
3 colors and double red for an enchantment that lets you copy the first instant or sorcery you play each turn.
So this is kind of like my addition to this top 10. I think the effect is deceptively powerful. You have this in play, your ad nauseams and stuff essentially require double counters. Your counter spells on your opponent's turns are like worth 2 counters, and just need to have lots of good instants and sorceries, namely tutors. Having double tutors is
double
really
tutors
good.
have the same.
Having like turning one tutor into a dockside and ad nauseam seems good in my books. The problem is 5 mana.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. It's 5 mana. If you can get it out and maybe just have a turn to untap with it, obviously I think it's just super powerful. But initially just playing it right then and there, I think can sometimes be an issue. But it's also probably like vulnerable to obviously all the enchantment removal and whatnot. So you could just play it and it gets destroyed. And you kind
vulnerable
of feel like
to bounce spells. It's like a tempo loss, a huge tempo hit.
It's a huge tempo loss. Yeah.
For all those reasons, we're putting it at the number 10. Number 9 is gonna be Zerthus, Chaos Rider, and this one has a lot of text in it. So whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their turn, you create a 1/1 red devil creature token with, when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. And whenever 1 or more devils you control attack 1 or more players, you and those players each draw a card, then discard a card at random. So it's essentially fueling itself.
Yeah. Even so, its first ability kind of lets it create devils a lot, just from the nature of multiplayer and the idea that a lot of us are playing like Chroms, Rustic Dice, Mystic Grimoires and stuff like that. But even if it wasn't generated, even if it didn't generate devils from that first ability, it can somewhat try to generate it by itself by attacking and then making your opponents draw cards and then creating the devils. I initially was actually pretty low on this because it was 3 mana and stuff like that, but River helped point out that I think it's 2 colors is pretty key because you can play Mana Crypt into land and then play this. If you play this turn 1, it's actually pretty good.
It's very similar to Najila that also takes over the game if you play turn 1.
Yeah. So it's obviously probably particularly threatening in Tymna decks where you could turn the devil attackers into card draw, and then it'd also be pretty good against the dork decks because if anyone ever blocks the devil, you just ping the dorks and it's great.
And I think Zerthus has cool synergies with Pyroclasm effects because Zerthus himself survives them, being a 2/3, and then your opponents having any creatures with toughness over 2 are gonna get the wrath of the devils, which allows essentially you to kill Chromes and Thrasioses and such with the triggers, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it does actually also have cute synergy with a Notion Thief or something like that because I think it says both you and your opponents draw a card. So if you have a Notion Thief out, then you could probably steal their card draw and then force them to discard a card, which is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
One of the downsides though is that you are looting your opponents, I think. So
and
other
yourself.
opponents are on. Yeah.
It's not card advantage. It's like
And so it does kind of help fuel breach, but it also helps fuel your opponent's breaches as well. So you have to be careful about that.
Yeah.
I also think is the discard random?
Yes.
Yes, it is. So there's that element to it.
There's a random element there, but I do believe in Zerthus in decks that can gain some additional value from the devils. If you have a Skull Clamp deck or a Goblin Bombardment, those devils are gonna do work.
Yeah.
And for those reasons, I think Zerthus might see some experimental play in like some farm builds or like Opus Thief. I do think it has enough text. Having the neat mana cost of 2 generic, 1 red is... I like this card. I think it has potential.
Yeah, my opinion of it has since changed. I'm actually pretty hyped for this card. I don't think I'm personally trying it out on any of my lists, but I think it definitely has potential.
Yeah.
So the next card we have is Lilias Standabear. It's 2 colors and a black for a 3/1 creature with flash, and when it comes into enters the battlefield, you draw X cards, where X is the number of creatures that died under your control this turn. River's the one that brought this card up to me, so why don't you talk about it?
Okay, so this card has 2 interesting effects. The first one is that normally black cards like these say draw X cards, lose X life. This one doesn't lose you life.
Nice.
So if you have like an arbitrarily high count like 80, that essentially means you draw your deck. You don't lose 80 life and die.
Nice.
It's pretty good. And then the fact that the standard bearer cares about stuff that died before he entered the battlefield. So this is actually something that has not been there before for Leonin Relic Warder loops. So essentially you have Leonin Relic Warder and Animate Dead, and you keep reanimating the Relic Warder with the Animate Dead, then follow it up with Standard Bearer, perhaps even animating it from your graveyard with the Animate Dead as the final part of the loop, and boom, you draw your deck and hopefully win from there.
Yeah, I think what might be significant is just thinking about like other lines that you might have done with the Leonin Relic Order beforehand. I think something you might have needed to have something like Blood Artist out on the battlefield beforehand, but with like Lilias Standabear, you can pretty much do the Animate Dead Leonin Relic Warder combo with just Lilias Standabear in your graveyard, and you can just finish off like that and draw your entire deck, which feels a lot more efficient to me than the Blood Artist kind of idea.
And then like you have the random late game value in that if somebody board wipes, then you can follow up with Standard Bearer, draw some cards, and hey, at the very worst, it's 3/1 flash, so you can ambush Viper creatures.
Yeah.
Okay, next card. Number 7 is gonna be Conspicuous Snoop. So this 2-mana goblin enables some new combo lines with Kiki Chiki.
Wow.
And basically, I am predicting that every deck that is interested in Kiki Chiki is gonna want Snoop as an additional value piece or an additional layer.
Just so the listeners can be clear, there is a combo you can try doing. I know some people have been trying to work with a Goblin Recruiter, which basically puts any number of goblin cards on top of your deck. So you can put Conspicuous Snoop, Torch Courier, Kiki Jiki on the top, and then somehow draw the Conspicuous Snoop, play it, and then you now have then you can give the Conspicuous Snoop haste, and
first you
then you
play the Torch Courier from the top.
Yeah.
Then you sack it, give it Snoop haste. Now it can have the Kiki Jiki activate ability, make million copies, and then finally use the Recruiter again with the last Kiki Jiki copy and have a top card be a kill spell goblin.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a pretty cool line. It just it pretty much just sees red mana and some cantrip. I think it's just 1 red, so 1 and 4 red and 1 cantrip, and yeah, it's pretty neat actually.
Number 6 we have
Ghostly Pilfer. Ghostly Pilfer is 2 mana, and it says whenever Ghostly Pilfer becomes untapped, you may pay 2 colorless mana. If you do, draw a card. Whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, draw a card, and then discard a card. Ghostly Pilfer can't be blocked this turn.
So this is a 2-drop, 2-mana 2/1 that by itself it draws you a card for 2 mana every turn if you attack with it. Gets better if you have 2 mana out. So I think this card is not the greatest if you can't abuse the discard a card part. If that brings no synergy to your deck, then he's like this he's like a weird Bob in that you have to pay 2 mana to get cards from it, like without any other help, and then you're basically hoping that your opponents are casting their commanders a lot in a game to get a lot of cards from this.
Yeah, I think for me, I definitely think that some people are overestimating the second ability. They think that you're going to get a lot of value from your opponents casting stuff other than the hands. While it is true that they will probably cast their commander or something like that, they might do so at like a much farther point in time, or let's say they are comboing with Breach or Food Chain. Like by the time you're drawing cards, it could definitely be a little bit too late. I think paying 2 mana to draw a card, like if you have to pay 2 mana for the body, and then you have to wait for it to attack, and then you have to wait for it to untap, I think that's just a lot of mana investment. It's just a lot of time. It's not great. I think the most value I could see just like immediately off of the card is the discarded card.
Yeah.
In fact, like obviously all of it is a package, but I think the most immediate and probably the easiest value you can get out of it is the discarded card factor of it.
Yeah. Like Dark Confidant is a great play turn 1. If you have like a Mox into Confidant, it's gonna keep drawing you cards every turn. You play this turn 1, are you gonna start spending 2 mana to get the trigger ability draw, the first ability? Like, when is your first opponent gonna cast their general?
Right.
Not very soon, I would say. So, but we still have him at number 6. The card with a lot of potential and into certain metagames, grindy metagames. I can see Ghostly Pilfer doing some work.
It could be particularly well against something like Paco, where they're casting like a bunch of cards from exile and stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, so at number 5 we have Emil the Blessed. It's for 2 colors and double white, and it has an activate ability for 3 colors. You can exile target creature you control and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. And it's a 4/4 with probably an irrelevant triggered ability.
Okay, so it's essentially a cheaper Deadeye Navigator that cannot protect itself. So some lists are gonna look at this and like, hey, goes infinite with Dockside.
Nice.
Sure, that's a good use for this card. As a value piece without Dockside though, well, I don't think Deadeye Navigator is seeing that much play as is. And neither is something like a Eldrazi Displacer. So as a random value piece, I think this card is overrated, and that's why we have it only as our number 5. But yeah, it is a value piece. It combos with Dockside, and that's its main use.
Yeah, I think compared to other combo pieces with Dockside, say Temur Sabertooth and Baron, Emil possibly might be the best because she just needs the least amount of mana from Dockside to go infinite, and so that's pretty valuable.
Sure.
But yeah, for value reasons, I don't think that you would want to really play this card outside of the Dockside. Okay.
Number 4, Teferi, Master of Time. So I really like Teferi. It does take over the game if it goes unanswered, because in a multiplayer setting you get 4 loyalty every turn cycle, so the ultimate is actually not that hard to achieve. Wow. And even then, if it doesn't get to ultimate, if somebody like deals with it before that, you're still drawing and discarding a lot, which feeds your Underworld Breach and helps you find your relevant tutors, letting you have an increased card quality in your hand. And it also acts as a instant speed creature combo disruption. You can take care of a creature such as the aforementioned Leonin Relic Warder or like Dockside.
Nice.
If they're trying to go off with it. So yeah, I like Teferi. If you play it turn 2, I think there's a really high chance that you kind of win the game if it goes unanswered. So
yeah, I love him, especially if you can just drop him early. Or maybe turn 1 might be too soon, but turn 2, turn 3, where nobody has creatures out and you're just drawing, discarding cards, and you're fueling your Breach, maybe even fueling your Tasker. But yeah, one thing I have noticed be an issue with him sometimes is he's not as great to play mid to late game, because sometimes there's a lot more attackers, and sometimes there's even multiple evasive attackers, right? I've played multiple games where there's just been 2 Chroms out, and while you could probably deal with just 1 Chrom, having 2 out is just, it's pretty much just like death for Teferi, and you'd probably only like maybe loot 3 cards, so 4 mana to loot 3 cards, not great. But if you can get him early, or if you can somehow protect him, I don't know, maybe from a board wipe or like maybe a flying blocker, I could see him really running away with the game. But I think that you either need to protect him, or you need to have him out early. So it's a little bit rough. I wouldn't just jam him everywhere. I think he definitely has a place, but it's a little experimental still.
I want to try this in Blue Farm. I think having the option to deal with onboard hate creatures such as Collector Oof is going to be valuable. So yeah. Speculating Teferi to be a powerhouse in cEDH at number 4. Number 3 we have Allosaurus Shepherd. So why don't you tell us, Cinestra, what he does?
It's 1 green for an elf that is a 1/1. It can't be countered, and it says green spells you control can't be countered.
Wow.
And it also has this random extra ability to turn your creatures late game into raptor riding stuff, but that's not the reason you're playing it. You're basically playing this as a protection for your mono green deck and food chain decks. And I see this as a slam dunk auto include in both of them.
So it also works for Najeela as well, because Najeela has both Derevi and Nature's Will, and it also makes tutors for Derevi from like Eldritch Evolution or Summoner's Pact uncounterable as well.
And he's a warrior, right?
Don't do that. You check. Let me check this out. I actually don't know if he's a warrior. He's not a warrior.
Oh fuck! We're gonna have to cut this.
I was like, are you kidding me?
No,
if he was a warrior, I feel
all right,
like...
shut up. Back to the story.
But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can see it being play in Najeela as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So something significant to note as well, it's actually a creature as well. So something like Selvala can actually tutor for him. So while Autumn's Veil and Veil of Summer were previously like almost like hard to find from Selvala, he's very easy to find in Selvala.
And also for food chain, if you first cast food chain, you can now use the Allosaurus Shepherd as a food chain fodder, which gives you mana to cast your Cast from Exile creatures. So yeah. Overall great card for green heavy decks. So basically mono green or food chain, or maybe the Najeela that has most of its win conditions as green. But yeah, it's not protecting your ad nauseum, so not every deck is gonna want this.
Yeah. It's not gonna see universal play, but if your deck already had like a lot of key green spells, or was mono green, I think that you probably want this card. So at number 2 we have Miscast. It's an instant for blue, and it says counter target instant or sorcery unless its control pays 3 colorless mana.
Yeah, I like Miscast. I think Miscast is gonna see play in most blue decks, because I think the main reason you're running counter spells is to protect your own combo. That's their number 1 job. Miscast does it really well for 1 mana.
Yeah, I also think it's particularly great in decks that care about countering board wipes, say like maybe Najeela or medium green, where they actually would really want to counter the board wipe for just a single blue mana. So yeah.
This is not the best card against Staxy pods. If your meta is widely consists of like mono green creature-based decks or like stacks-based mono white, whatever, then Miscast is not gonna do great. But having Miscast in those fast pods with ad nauseum, yeah, I like it a lot, and I think it's about as good as Dispel or Spell Pierce. Each one has like its own niche upsides, but I think they're roughly the same.
Yeah. So I've also heard some talk about maybe replacing Dispel with this card. For me personally, I think I would actually just run both.
I think that's total nonsense. I think this spell, in my books, is a really good counter spell. Obviously not good in those taxi pods, but yeah, I don't see like why you would replace this spell. I think you want both. I think it's the same case with like Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast, that you don't really need to think which one to run because you just run both if you want the effect.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, and our number one.
Wow.
If anybody knows me and how much I like Ad Nauseam, they might have guessed what is gonna be the number one for M21 and Jumpstart for cEDH, and that's gonna be Peer into the Abyss. 7 mana, draw half of your library, lose half of your life total, round up each time. So yeah, 7 mana, second Ad Nauseam.
Nice.
How could you forget its target player, though? For the sweet deflecting swat.
Ooh, yeah. Let's not forget that, and don't you forget that in your games. Don't get your Ad Nauseam deflecting swatted, or at least consider the possibility that it might happen. So, do protect your peers. But yeah, I do like it a lot actually. 7 mana is 2 mana more than Ad Nauseam. But unlike Ad Nauseam, I don't think this can whiff unless your library is super low on cards.
Nice.
Peer into Abyss in like fast turbo Ad Nauseam focused decks, it's never gonna whiff. You're just gonna win flat out the game after you resolve it. And unlike Ad Nauseam, which becomes uncastable at some point in the game, where people have been hitting you with their commanders and such, Peer into Abyss is basically relevant to the moment that you have 1 life left. If you're at 1 life, I advise against casting Peer into the Abyss, but any other life total, you should be able to win the game. So I think that upside is definitely worth it, and basically just having 2 Ad Nauseams in your deck when all you're basically looking to do anyways is to just get mana, and well, now you have 7 mana Ad Naus. With Dockside, that's not a big deal.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of people correctly, I think, compare this card to Ad Naus, but I don't really think that's their correct kind of mentality. I think a lot of times, maybe in particularly these farm lists, is what they want to do is they want to like ritual out a bunch of mana, and then they want to play a payoff, right? And of course, Ad Naus is a great payoff, right? But I think Peer into the Abyss is another example of a very powerful payoff that you want to be consistently seeing in your deck. I've also heard the idea of so before there'd be some like mid-range / control list that could not run Ad Nauseam because they just have a too high of a average CMC. But I would also argue that maybe they can't run Peer into the Abyss as well, because some of these when you cast Peer into the Abyss, you really want to be able to win. And so these farm lists can do that because they have these like Simian Spear guys, they have these Lotus Petals, they have all these ways to generate free mana just out of nothing, right? But these control decks, a lot of them actually just skip out on this free mana because it's not great card quality wise.
They are limited in the amount of fast mana they can produce. Exactly.
So even if they cast it, they probably can't win, right? So
yeah,
but just to go over some of the weaknesses, obviously this compared to Ad Naus, this is weak against Deflecting Swat, Notion Thief, Narset, that kind of stuff, right?
Yes. But so you need to be aware. You need to be careful.
Yeah, of course. Notably, it dodges Dispel though, so
that's true, but not Miscast.
No, not Miscast.
Right. So I think this being Sorcerer Speed is not a downside. Not really. Like, it would be a plus if it were an instant, but you just don't whiff with this. Is so big. You draw more cards with this than with Ad Nauseam, and you're left with a hefty life total, which you can use to your heart's content to, use your talisman manas and your fetch lands and your whatever.
Yeah.
This card is amazing. Just play it in a list that actually is able to win after resolving it. That's the only thing the card asks you to do.
Yeah, I think if your list is looking to resolve a main phase Naz and expecting to win from a main phase Naz, I feel like this Peer into the Abyss is pretty much a slam dunk.
By main phase nauseum, I would like to clarify when you're holding 0 mana after you cast it.
Yeah, I would say a lot of the mid-range lists, like maybe Nagila or CST, they aren't great examples of main phase Naz lists because they kind of struggle with producing mana out of nothing. But some more of the farm lists, they have a lot of ways to generate mana out of nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this was it. Our top 10 for M21 and Jumpstart for cEDH, and I hope to hear feedback from people playing with these cards. Send all the feedback to Cinestra though, because I don't actually want to read them.
Please message River. River loves hearing your messages. He's sad that nobody messages him about Blue Farm. So
I'm so glad that I'm the one doing the edits. So
shut up.